You are listening to the Hero's Journey podcast. I'm Jeff Garvin.
And I'm Dan Zarzana.
Let the journey begin.
Listeners, welcome to this special bonus episode of the Hero's Journey, where we analyze your favorite books and films and video games using Joseph Campbell's monomyth and Christopher Vogler's modern adaptation as a guiding light.
Yeah, this is our very first video game episode. Dan and I have been bouncing this idea back and forth for many, many months.
Years, probably.
Yeah, probably years. And in the end, we just kept deciding it wasn't practical because it takes so long to play a video game. I mean, 40 hours, even compared to reading a novel.
The length it takes to play this game, you could read Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah. The game is around 40 hours, depending on how bad you are at it. But then we got invited by Cassia and Brian of the Old Republic podcast to discuss the hero's journey of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic on their May the 4th episode. And so after we did it, we thought, hey, we can take this analysis, this prep work, and spin it into an official bonus episode of the hero's journey.
Yeah. So thank you so much to Cassia and Brian of the Old Republic podcast for that inspiration.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of Star Wars and Knights of the Old Republic specifically, give their podcast a try. They are super fans and go in depth into all aspects of the game, as well as Star Wars lore and philosophy in general. We had a great time as guests on their show, and it is thanks to them that we're doing this bonus episode.
I really enjoyed playing this game, and as we go through the analysis, I'm sure both of us will gush about certain aspects of it. Knights of the Old Republic, or KOTOR, as it is popularly known in the gaming community, was the first computer role-playing game set in the Star Wars universe. The game was originally released nearly 20 years ago.
Hello, listeners, patrons, and friends. Dan here from the editing suite at Studio Z. We recorded this episode in April 2022, but I held on to the footage, making that previous statement slightly incongruous. But now, we have the opportunity to release this episode on July 15th, 2023, the actual 20th anniversary of Knights of the Old Republic. So congrats to KOTOR, to the game's developer BioWare, and to players around the world, be they light side or dark. Happy anniversary, and may the Force be with you.
For the original Xbox console video game system platform, and later that year on November 19, 2003 for PC players on their Pentium 1 or something, probably.
Role-playing game is an important distinction. There were, of course, many Star Wars games released prior to KOTOR, as far back as the Star Wars Vector Graphics Atari arcade cabinet released back in 1983, the same year that Return of the Jedi hit theaters. I don't know how many quarters I dumped into that thing, but I don't think I made it past one level. I was rubbish.
What I love is that the graphics in the movie were only slightly better than the graphics of that video game, because
that's not true at all. Take that back. Come on.
No, that like the on-screen graphics when Luke is looking at his targeting computer.
Oh, on his targeting computer.
That's what I mean. Not the effects. No. Dan, predating the game you just mentioned was 1982's Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back.
I had that for my Atari 2600.
Oh,
I think it also came out for Intellivision, I think. But yes, folks, that's how old we are. Ooh, while we're on the subject, check out our side project, No Games for Old Men, on YouTube.
Shameless plug. You should. Dan has a great series where he plays this turn-based strategy game. Is that what it's called? A turn-based strategy called Mutant Year Zero. And it's fun to watch. The story is great, and Dan is a master of the turn-based strategy game.
Oh, I wouldn't characterize it quite like that, but I appreciate your kind words, sir. Did you have a console growing up?
I had Atari 2600, and then I had a Commodore 64, and then I had a PC, and then I had Nintendo. And then I had nothing until PlayStation 2.
Wow, okay. That's a pretty similar path that I took as well. Knights of the Old Republic was a critical and commercial success. Universal acclaim is the term often used to characterize the collective critical response. Game Informer gave it 9 out of 10. GameSpot gave it a 9.1 out of 10. IGN scored it 9.5 out of 10. The game received more than 40 Game of the Year awards from various publications around the world. And in stores, the game sold out in 4 days, making KOTOR the Xbox's fastest selling game at the time. And while today it no longer appears in the top 10 of best-selling Star Wars games of all time, that fact alone shows how the success of KOTOR established new possibilities for the franchise and inspired a whole generation of game developers.
The Force.
Don't say it.
The Force.
Don't do it, Jeff.
The Force is strong with this one. I don't make the rules, Dan.
Calibrate your gamepad, run KOTOR.exe as administrator, and press play. This is the hero's journey of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic.
Act 1 of the hero's journey begins with the ordinary world. We see our main character in their status quo normal life. Every Star Wars journey begins with an opening crawl. And in this opening crawl, we learn that it's 4,000 years before the rise of the Empire that we got to know so well in the original trilogy. Darth Malak, the last surviving apprentice of Dark Lord Revan, and the victim of a heinous mandibular injury, leaving him with a very spooky-looking metal jaw. You know, all of our Star Wars bad guys have some sort of battle scar. He has unleashed a seemingly invincible Sith armada on the galaxy. The Jedi Order's ranks have been thinned by the conflict, as many knights either died or joined the dark side, and the Jedi Council has hidden itself away on Dantooine. Now, in the skies above the outer rim world of Tari, there we
go. I like Tari.
A Jedi fleet battles the forces of Darth Malak in an effort to stop the Sith's war of domination. Our hero, who is nameless and genderless until you choose that as you set up the game. You can choose your hero's gender and appearance and essentially their class. This game is the combat is based on D&D edition 3.5. And so the
Dungeons and Dragons for the uninitiated of what the acronym D&D is.
Yeah, so it's based on the combat system of then the most predominant role-playing system in the world. So you get to choose, your class and your abilities. But our hero, whoever you decide they are, awakens on a ship called the Endar Spire. It's a Republic vessel under the command of a Jedi named Bastila Shan. And we are informed by a fellow Republic soldier that the ship is going down.
We've been ambushed by a Sith battle fleet. The Endar Spire is under attack. Hurry up, we don't have much time.
And that soldier, Trask, aids our hero in abandoning ship in an escape pod. And then he splits off to confront Malak's apprentice, Darth Bandon, a name that you will remember later in the game. And in a profound breaking of the rules of almost any kind of modern storytelling, our hero awakens again, twice at the beginning of the story, this time in a strange apartment. And in that apartment as well is another Republic soldier named Karth Onasi.
I'm Karth, one of the Republic soldiers from the Endar Spire. I was with you in the escape pod. Do you remember?
And he informs our hero that Bastila Shan's escape pod crash landed here as well, on this outer rim planet under the control of the Sith. So that is the world in which our hero finds themselves at the beginning of this game.
And what was your character's class? I went with Scout. Which, there's 3 classes. You can be a soldier, which has good combat skills right away. You could be a scoundrel, which has good sneaky skills right away. Or you could be a scout, which has good robot repair and computer use and things like that. I think were kind of the main skills of that class, if I'm remembering correctly.
I chose scoundrel. which is a pretty close analog to the Dungeons & Dragons class rogue.
Sure.
When I'm going into a campaign and I don't know what to expect, a rogue is a pretty good all-around choice because they're competent at fighting, but they also can get out of sticky situations using stealth or opening doors. So that felt the most comfortable to me.
And your character name?
I named my character Trindana.
One word? Trindana?
2 names.
Trin.
Dana. Yeah.
Okay. Named after The Matrix and Dana Scully.
No idea. Just came up with it on the spot.
Okay.
Names in books are important. Names in video games, I was like, I want to get to the fighting.
Not so much. Okay.
How about you?
All right. So mine. I typically in games like this, in fantasy or sci-fi games, I typically choose the name Koyanis.
Ooh.
It's the beginning of the word Koyaanisqatsi. And what the word Koyaanisqatsi means is life in disarray, life in turmoil, chaos.
Huh.
Okay, next segment is the call to adventure. The hero is presented with a challenge which renders them unable to continue living in the comfort of the ordinary world. So in this abandoned apartment on Terrace, Karth informs our player character that they must go find Bastila Shan.
Bastila's a Jedi. She was with the strike team that killed Darth Revan, Malak's Sith Master. Bastila's the key to the whole Republic war effort. We have to try and find her.
And that's the call to adventure.
That takes us to refusal of the call. Confronted with fear of the unknown, our hero refuses the adventure. Sometimes this energy is expressed from within the hero and sometimes from without. When you're doing a video game and it's interactive, your player's the hero. They're not really going to refuse the call. They want to play the game, right? So to be like, nah, I'm out.
Refusing the call is selecting exit game.
Yeah.
That's your...
That's one thing that makes this part of the journey a little bit tough in terms of having any kind of refusal from within the hero. And then the other thing is that any video game has micro objectives, right? These smaller quests that have their own hero's journey cycles. And many of them are contained in each larger section of the journey. And so there's the larger story arc. And then inside that, there's each of the arcs of the acts. And then inside those are the arcs of all the adventures you have to go on to achieve those quests. So since there's between 30 and 45 hours of content here, there's going to be a lot of zooming out. Because if we named every plot point there was, we'd be here for 40 hours or longer. I mean, our average movie podcast is an hour to an hour and a half. We can't do a 40-hour podcast on this episode. We don't have the hard drive space. So on the planet Terrace, we have to find Bastila. And to do that, we have to go into the Undercity, the poorest, most violent parts of this city planet. In this Undercity, there are gangs, Undercity gangs, and then there's the Sith, who are not just Force users, but they are an entire organization of soldiers. They have their own army. And so the refusal here really comes from without, as the gangs and the Sith stand in the way of our hero and Karth finding and freeing Bastila. The other thing I'll point out here is that even though this is all Act 1 of the journey, we have to unpack a lot of stuff to establish how the game is going to be played. So our hero does meet allies and enemies during this section of the game, even though that's technically Act 2 of the hero's journey. So it starts to get pretty mixed up here as you have to have the game rolling, and there's an arcing story of this game that can change based on the choices you make. But in this section of the journey, it's really about the resistance our hero receives trying to solve this initial quest.
And we discover during our investigation of the planet that Bastila has been found and is being held captive by one of these Undercity gangs.
Yeah, and you have to fight them, you have to sneak into a base, you have to do swoop racing, which is kind of like old school
like pod racing.
Exactly, old school pod racing. And so you're being introduced to all these elements of gameplay as you're solving this initial quest.
That brings us to Supernatural Aid, or the meeting with the mentor. The hero receives counsel on how to operate in the special world. being a video game, there's a lot of instruction that comes to, first of all, the player.
Right.
As a player on here's how you play the game. There's some hilarious moments early on when your character wakes up on the Endar Spire. Ostensibly, you don't know how to play the game. That's how the developer has to treat the opening tutorial area. Let's pretend that the player has never played a video game before, doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
And so this character of Trask that you're talking to is telling you how to open a footlocker, how to put your clothes on, how to manage me, click on me, and then click on the Sith to make me attack the Sith, and then we can get through it's hysterical because it's so fourth wall breaking.
It's an in-story conceit that you just kind of have to swallow when you're playing this game.
Yeah, usually that kind of thing is handled by some kind of like an omniscient voice that just tells you, here's how you play the game, or just text boxes
hovering
that
arrows.
pop up.
Yeah, exactly.
But throughout the game, there are mentor moments. This is a Star Wars game, after all, and Star Wars is all about mentors. And Karth offers mentorship to your player character, telling you about the planet you're on and how it's overrun with Sith, and we've got to be careful and lay low. Eventually, at the end of this Terrace sequence, you do find Bastila and rescue her, and then she takes on the role of your mentor as she senses a force sensitivity within your player character.
Yeah.
So she then wants to take you under her wing, essentially, and help you explore that. There's dialogue of her specifically saying, I am your mentor.
Subtle.
That is the meeting with...
Yeah.
When you finally meet her and recruit her for your adventuring party.
We also see these cutscenes of visions that our hero is having of their past and of scenes we don't really understand of Dark Lord Revan and Darth Malak. And there's some shared visions between us and Bastila that we're not really sure what it's about. As you said, this is a Star Wars story, so there are many mentor moments which we will continue to call out. But that brings us to crossing the threshold. The hero must pass a barrier to enter the special world. This crossing represents the hero's commitment to taking on the adventure. The final battle on Terrace is our hero and their companions, whom we'll introduce here in the next section, defeating a bounty hunter named Kalo Nord, stealing a ship called the Ebonhawk, and escaping Terrace. And as we're leaving Terrace, Bastila informs us that we are headed to Dantooine, where the Jedi Council is hiding and will guide us further.
Dantooine. Seems like a lifetime since I last set foot on her surface. Though in truth, it's only been a few months. We should be safe from Malak here. For now, at least.
That brings us to Act 2. Wow, Dan. In a video game, Act 2 is long.
It has to be. Act 2 is the gamey bits.
Yeah, the Road of Trials is literally a game. So
open your quest log. That is your Road of Trials. Having crossed the threshold, the hero meets allies, makes enemies, and must pass a series of tests to prove their worthiness. So because this is a role-playing game based on Dungeons & Dragons rule set, you've got to have an adventuring party.
Yes.
With the many character class analogs available. So you've got the fighter and the wizard and the rogue and the ranger, and all of these are present in these other characters that you recruit. So Karth, we've already established Karth. He is a soldier and a pilot for the Republic. Bastila is a Jedi, so she's like the wizard.
Yeah. Or cleric.
Oh, sure, yeah, cleric as well. Probably both.
Yeah.
During the initial adventure on Terrace, you purchase, potentially, unless you play Dark Side, in which case you bully a droid merchant into giving you your version of R2-D2, which is called T3M4. And he behaves just like R2-D2. He's, he can hack computers and do stuff like that, but you can also equip him with weapons like a flamethrower, which I found bizarre and humorous at times.
Yeah, they really had to like fighter up the droids to make them legit party members.
You also meet a young Twi'lek street urchin named Mission and her Wookiee bodyguard named Zalbar.
If you don't remember what Twi'leks are, or you haven't read a lot of Star Wars, they're the race that have like, they're human looking, but they have sort of like the two long tails coming out the back of their head. In Return of the Jedi, the Jabba's dancer is a Twi'lek.
The reason you even escaped terrorists in the first place aboard the Ebon Hawk is because there is another henchman of Davik Kang's named Canderous, who is a Mandalorian, but not like the Mandalorian from the show. This is a bad dude. And he approaches you and says, I will give you the codes to break into Davik Kang's stronghold so you can steal the Ebon Hawk if you break into the Sith base and steal the launch codes. There is a blockade of this planet, and any ship leaving the planet without authorization will be annihilated by the Sith battleships that are in orbit.
The ultimate refusal.
Yeah, very much. And so you have to get those codes, and then you can get on the ship. And Canderous joins you. You're kind of his ticket out of there. There is also potentially other recruitable characters. Juhani, a Jedi who has fallen to the dark side, who you could either defeat in battle or turn back to the good side. There is also a battle droid named HK-47, who is a fan favorite. There is also Jolee, a retired Jedi of sorts who you can recruit.
Yeah, he's almost an Obi-Wan.
A bit, yeah. He's a hermit.
Yeah, exactly.
Living on the forest floor area of Kashyyyk, which is the Wookiee home planet, in an area called the Shadowlands, where you're warned constantly, don't go there, it's dangerous, there's monsters and bad things down there. And this dude he's just living there.
Just chilling with his lightsaber.
It reminds me a little bit of Yoda on Dagobah, which seems like an inhospitable environment to live.
My home this is.
So those are the potential, and some of these characters you can miss. Like if you aren't able to convince Juhani to join the light side again, and you have to defeat her, and then you don't have her as a party member.
I will admit to playing that scene out with her, failing to persuade her. Because let me tell you, the scoundrel class, not so high on persuasion. I did save game, go back and play it until I could join her because I wanted her on my side. I didn't want to kill her. So
Yeah.
we were talking. It was kind of the video game version of I don't know if you guys remember choose your own adventure novels where you'd read the story, you'd get to the bottom of the page, and it would say, if you want to murder Juhani, turn to page 14. If you want to turn her to the light side, turn to page 17. But you would keep your finger in that page to check out what happened on each choice and then go back to the page. I definitely did some of that in this game. Admitted.
The scout class that I selected definitely had high persuasion, and I pumped a lot of skill points into persuasion as I leveled up too. So I didn't have any trouble with Juhani. Okay, so those are the allies. Good grief.
Yeah.
There's plenty of other allies, but those are the main ones that are with you throughout your journey. Now the enemies. Of course, Darth Malak, who is the Darth Vader of this story. Darth Bandon, his apprentice. There are Kalo Nord, the bounty hunter that you fight on Terrace as you are stealing the Ebon Hawk. He recurs. All of the Sith. There's the Mandalorians, which are a warlike group of people. What is that?
My family and I have distorted that song until that's what it sounds like in our family when we watch that show.
The way the Mandalorians are characterized by Canderous is very different from the way we see them in the show.
Absolutely. They are not heroes.
They're mercenary, warlike people.
Yes.
Okay, so prove your worthiness. The player character has to prove themselves worthy of becoming a Jedi Padawan. In the events on Dantooine, you meet the Jedi Council.
Traditionally, the Jedi do not accept adults for training, though there are rare exceptions in the history of our order. But you are a special case.
So you've got these missions where you have to study the Jedi code,
right,
and recite these segments perfectly, where one of your Jedi Masters will say the first half of a phrase and you have to answer properly the second half.
Right.
And there are multiple stages of this. And if you fail any one of those stages, then you fail the test and you have to go back and study again until you recite the entirety of the Jedi Code correctly. There's other quests as well. You have to find a kyber crystal so that you can construct a lightsaber, and eventually, assuming that you don't give up on the game at this point, you do prove yourself worthy.
You have passed your final test. Congratulations, apprentice. Or should I say, congratulations, Padawan. You have proven yourself worthy of joining the Jedi. Let me be the first to welcome you as a full-fledged member of our order.
With, again, mentor moment, Bastila as your guide.
Yes. Even though she's not a master.
And while you're on Dantooine, because video game, you have a series of quests to go on to help a variety of people that are also hanging out at this Jedi enclave. There's a pair of warring families, very much like the Montagues and Capulets.
Yeah.
With a son and daughter who are in love, but the fathers hate each other and have sworn war upon one another. And so you have to, as you will discover on every planet you visit, there are these moral choices that you can make that help you as the player character define the light side or dark side path you wish your character to take. And so these are your opportunities to define that character.
It's a very simple binary version of the Dungeons and Dragons mechanic of alignment.
Yes.
I guess binary is the wrong term. It's a spectrum, but it's a one-dimensional spectrum. It's not chaos to law, good to evil.
I think binary is fair because your choices are either the light side choice or the dark side choice. But you could, throughout the story, every now and then make the dark side choice.
I did that a couple times.
If you prefer it. Sometimes you do it accidentally, but it could also be an intentional choice, and that would make your character less pure in terms of either spectrum.
Right.
The main part of your task on Dantooine, though, is to explore these ruins.
Yes.
That have been a part of this shared vision that you and Bastila both experience. And the exploration of these ruins leads to the discovery of a mechanical device. It's like almost like an egg thing that opens up as you approach it, and a hologram is projected.
Yes.
This is a map, some sort of intergalactic navigational chart. Revan and Malak must have used this to lead them to the Starforge. We could use this map to follow their path and find the Starforge ourselves, but we must be wary. They may have laid traps or concealed what they found.
You learn then that this is just one part of this star map, and there are other parts on other planets. So your main story quest then becomes go to these other planets and find the star map, complete the star map. This will then give you the location of the Star Forge.
Yes.
Which you don't quite know what that is yet.
You know that it has something to do with Revan and Malak.
Yeah.
And their rise. I just wanted to drop in here. The autocorrect, as I was typing up my notes, Darth Bandon became Darth Brandon, which is like the least intimidating sound Darth ever. And then Padawan autocorrects to Palawan, which is a province in the Philippines where I almost died in a scuba diving accident. So thanks for the PTSD autocorrect.
Wow. Maybe right-click on Padawan and select Add to Dictionary so that doesn't happen again.
It's a good idea. So, as we said, Act 2 is long, so normally Dan and I each take a segment of the journey, but we're going to break up tests because it's a gigantic. So, yes, there are MacGuffins in this game, and they're pieces of the star map, and each piece of the star map can be found on a different planet. From Dantooine, you have many choices. You can choose which order you visit the planets.
Yeah.
Dan and I just happen to choose the same order, so we're going to unfold it that way. The next planet we visited was Tatooine, a planet very familiar to people who know Star Wars, to locate the next star map, which our hero's vision tells us is hidden in a cave. So you get to Tatooine, you're starting to learn the rules of Anchorhead. Every time you land on a new planet, it's a new ordinary world, or a new special world, of which you must learn the rules. And you also meet allies and enemies. So this cycle repeats and repeats. you have to interact with the Sand People, and you have a couple choices of how you can do it. You can just blast your way, or you can bargain with them. You buy a droid, a battle droid that is thinly veiled as a protocol droid, HK-47, which is very similar to AK-47. I wonder if that's why they were making that, so it sounded violent. HK-47 speaks Sand Peopleese, Tuscan Raiderese, and after some ethically questionable dealings with the Sand People, they give our hero a map leading to the lair of a crate dragon, which I believe Star Wars fans have seen the Mandalorian battle, right? We've seen a crate dragon.
Yep.
After slaying the crate dragon, which is by no means an easy task, it involves a lot of negotiation with this other bounty hunter, another crate dragon hunter who has devised a very unglorious way of killing this thing with essentially a series of mines that he's laid.
Yeah.
You kill the crate dragon, you find the second star map, and you're ready to leave. But Malik has hired Kalo Nord, who you failed to kill but only escaped from, to track down Bastila, whom he knows now escaped Terrace. And you have to defeat him to get off the planet.
Did you become the swoop race champion of Tatooine?
Dan, I hated swoop racing and Pazak so hard.
I barely played Pazak.
The first time I played the game, I think I got to one of the later planets, and I was convinced that what I had failed to do is swoop race enough or play Pazak enough, and that I needed to do that to get skills or something. But one of the things that I learned from watching your Mutant Year Zero is that all those boring parts of the game, or rather parts that I thought were boring, which is reading about all the different weapons and abilities, are actually key to winning battles. And so doing it this time, I was like, oh, certain weapons and certain grenades and certain abilities are really important for certain battles, and you must swap out the right crew, and you must use the right weapons. And so once I discovered that, I was like, finally, I don't have to swoop race.
Yeah, are you up against some battle droids? Make sure you equip ion rifles and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those have a much more effective...
Oh, boy.
I did become the swoop race champion of every opportunity that you have.
I sucked at it.
The interesting thing about this game is that regardless of the planet you go to first after Dantooine,
yeah,
Kalo Nord confronts you on whatever that planet happens to be.
Right.
And that was to me, it feels like revolutionary game design. I don't remember playing a game that allowed you to do that gave you these opportunities to select the paths you go on, but also have scripted events that always happen at this point in the story, regardless of where you go.
Yeah.
As a gamer, this was new for me. Maybe there were examples of this in other games, but I'm not familiar. But anyway.
Yeah, in a D&D campaign, you would actually call this railroading, because the overall story is inserting itself despite your choices. But you still get the light side, dark side choices. So you still have a lot of autonomy and freedom in this game.
But what these events do is allow us to zoom out, as you've said, and apply these railroad moments to the hero's journey.
Yes.
As we'll see as we discuss over the next several minutes.
Absolutely.
Okay, after you leave your first planet, you've got 3 others that you can go to. I chose Manan next.
Me too.
And I believe you did too.
Manan.
Manan is a water planet populated by a species of aquatic humanoid-ish characters called the Selkath. They harvest a resource called Kolto, which is a powerful medicinal product.
Right.
And it only grows on this planet, under the waves, deep, deep, deep on the ocean floor. Because Kolto is so critical to both the Sith and the Republic war efforts, these two warring factions have a tentative ceasefire in place on Manan, because Manan does not tolerate violence of any kind. And if one side or the other gets aggressive, the Selkath will disappear under the waves and you'll never see them again.
Right.
So again, you land on the planet. There is you could write a hero's journey analysis of everything you do on this planet, but the main moral choice here on this planet is how you handle during your investigation on this planet. You discover that the star map is on the floor of the ocean, in the vicinity of an illegal Republic culto harvesting facility.
Oops.
And the area of the ocean that the star map piece actually is being guarded by a very angry aquatic creature called a Faraxan shark.
Oh, to be in the writer's room when this twisted tale was drummed up.
So the moral choice here is, do you poison the water so that the Faraxan shark dies and allow the Republic to continue harvesting colto, or do you destroy the mining equipment, which will then cause the Faraxan shark to go away because it doesn't feel like its territory is being threatened anymore and it can chill out? I destroyed the mining equipment.
So did I.
Okay.
Only to find out that you're going to set back colto production for the Republic 5 years, which will likely cost thousands of lives since colto is like the healing element. So you save one shark. At what cost, Dan? At what cost?
But it was an illegal mining operation.
Lives, Dan.
Illegal.
Ethics, morality, who knows what these things are.
So you find this third piece of the star map, and you are free to continue your journey.
The next planet I visited was Kashyyyk, the home of the Wookiees. And of course, this is Zalbar's home. We haven't really talked about this, but each character has their own arcing quest to solve. And for Zalbar, you find out he's been banished from his planet because of a family conflict.
He's a prince, essentially.
Yeah. He's royalty, baby. He's son of the chieftain. So you descend to the forest floor known as the Shadowlands, where you meet recluse Jedi Jolee Bindo, whose aid you solicit to help you get through a Zerka Corp barrier. And on the other side of that barrier, after quite a bit of adventuring, you find the third star map. Now, I don't know what choices you made, but I joined the side of the Wookiees and helped defeat Zerka Corporation and free the Wookiees from bondage.
Yeah, we discover during these events that Zalbar's brother Chundar has been working with Zerka Corp, selling his own people as slaves, and in return is allowed to be the chief of the remaining quote-unquote free Wookiees.
Power corrupts, man.
So you can either side with Chundar and squash the Wookiee rebellion, or you can side with Zalbar and defeat Chundar, put their father back on the throne, and help remove the exile of Zalbar.
Yeah.
And I was all rebels.
Yeah, me too. Screw this corporation oppressing the indigenous people on every planet. The Jawas, the Sand People, the Wookiees. Like, I get it. Let's stop that now. That takes us to approach to the inmost cave, where the hero reaches the edge of a dangerous place where the object of their quest is hidden. Whichever planet you visit third, you are confronted by Darth Malak's apprentice, Darth Bandon, whom you must presumably defeat in an epic lightsaber battle.
At last, my search is over. I was beginning to fear someone else had killed you and deprived me of the pleasure. You may have defeated the pathetic bounty hunter my master sent after you, but you are no match for me.
I struggled so hard with this fight. I had
You did?
Yes.
I thought you said you had no trouble at all. You said
No.
You said no. I force whirlwinded him a bunch, and that was it.
I had to go back and regroup a couple times. As I've earned my name on No Games for Old Men, my instinct, if there's a guy with a lightsaber, is to run at him with my lightsaber. That's just my gut. And what you have to do is when you encounter him, he and his minions are like 4 turns away from you. So you have time to do some buffs and throw some grenades and use all sorts of force powers on him. And it took me, I want to say, 4 tries to defeat Darth Bandon. I definitely shouted out with glee when I completed that confrontation.
Oh, me too. That was a big relief. I had a hard time with him as well. And it took using those stims,
Oh, yeah.
you can stamina
stimulants,
stamina, and there's strength, and there's all these other, they basically just boost your stats, make you stronger,
battle stimulants,
faster, things like that. So
you have shields you can activate.
Yeah, while Bandon is running at you, I'm just pumping all this stuff. I just juicing my character like crazy until Bandon gets to you, and that ultimately is what turned the tide. That was the only reason I think I was able to do it.
This is the event that causes Malik to seek out Bastila and our hero personally. Until now, Malik has been comfortable sending a bounty hunter and then his apprentice. But now everyone's failed him. He's going to do it himself. And that is what leads us toward that inmost cave.
That brings us to the ordeal. The hero faces the ultimate test, often risking death to overcome their worst fear, sometimes actually appearing to die. So as you leave your third planet on your way to your fourth planet, the fourth being the final planet where you will complete the star map, you are attacked by a Sith vessel called the Leviathan, which is basically Darth Malik's flagship.
Yeah.
You are captured, you are thrown into the brig, and you're given one of your supporting characters to play.
Yeah.
To break them out.
It's a cool change. Now you have to play one of your a solo mission with one of your companions, but not your hero.
Yeah. I picked HK-47 for that one because I figured he's a droid, so he might be able to break into computers if necessary, and he's also a combat droid, so he should be able to hold his own against assailants.
I picked Juhani. I wanted to give her a chance to redeem herself.
Once your hero is freed from their jail cell, along with Bastila, they make an escape attempt, but are confronted personally by Darth Malik.
Yeah. Whoa.
In a multi-part combat.
Yes.
Where you whittle him down a little bit and then he takes off. But before that, he reveals to you, drops the bomb that you, dear player, are Revan, the Dark Lord of the Sith.
What a twist.
And Bastila confirms it.
It's true. I was part of the team sent to capture Revan, to capture you. When Malik fired on the ship, you were badly injured. We thought you were dead. Your mind was destroyed, but I used the Force to preserve the flicker of life in your body. I brought you to the Jedi Council. They were the ones who healed your damaged mind.
The Jedi Council didn't restore your wounded mind, Revan. They merely programmed it with a new identity, one loyal to the Republic. They tried to make you their slave.
Hence those visions of where the star maps were, because you'd been there before.
Because you've been there already.
Yeah.
With your apprentice, Darth Malik. This is the hero appearing to die. Now, if you are a light side player, particularly like me, learning that you are... This is like if Luke found out he was actually Darth Vader.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is that moment.
It's that level of twist.
Bastila engages Darth Malik individually, uses her Force abilities to close the door behind her, cutting you off from her, leaving just you and Karth to flee to the Ebon Hawk and escape the Leviathan to continue your search for the Starforge.
Bastila doesn't stand a chance against Malik, but we can't help her. Not here. We have to get off the ship and find the Starforge. That's the key to beating the Dark Lord. Bastila sacrificed herself so we could get away. We can't let her sacrifice be in vain. Come on!
Well, that takes us to the final stage of Act 2. Reward, the ultimate boon. Having faced their worst fear, our hero seizes the object of their quest. Now, the physical reward happens when you visit whatever the fourth planet is and find the final piece of the star map. You and I both visited Korriban last. You have to infiltrate the Sith Academy by posing as a Sith hopeful in order to gain access to the temple where we now suspect the final star map is. You have to gain prestige with the Sith Master, Master Uthar Wynn, by accomplishing tasks. You have to raid the tombs of long-dead Sith Masters and liberate artifacts. And finally, you gain the requisite prestige, and you accompany Wynn and one of your, I guess she's kind of like a Sith recruiter, Euthura, to the tomb of Naga Sadow. And you find the star map, and you finish the last of the Sith Academy's tests, and then, and maybe this was just me, in a strange foreshadowing of Anakin Skywalker's later slaughter of the Jedi younglings, I had to go through and kill every last Sith to get off that planet.
Yeah, the path back to the ship is through the Sith Academy, and they all attack you.
Yeah.
Once you get in, because now you have slaughtered their master and exposed your treachery.
Yeah. I love, once you've realized you're Revan, there are many dialogue opportunities where you get to say, I'm the Dark Lord Revan, bow before me. I tried it once just for poops and giggles, and they were like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's depressing.
Sure you are.
That's the physical reward, but there are spiritual rewards as well to facing death and, for the moment, putting off murder by Darth Malak. And that is one of the elements that Vogler identified is seeing through deception. Now, there's no bigger deception than having been deceived about who you are. So finding out that you're Revan is a huge seeing through deception moment.
And that the Jedi Council that you met on Dantooine knew the whole time.
Everybody
and they had used you.
Been lying. Everybody.
Bastila too.
It reminded me of Dumbledore's relationship to Harry, because there's a lot of deception in his mentorship. I love the flawed mentor as an archetype. It's possibly my favorite archetype. Then you have self-realization, another aspect of the reward. And I'm quoting Vogler here. Heroes can sometimes experience a profound self-realization after tricking death. They see who they are and how they fit into the scheme of things. They see the ways they've been foolish or stubborn. The scales fall from their eyes, and the illusion of their lives is replaced with clarity and truth. That's pretty word for word what happens when you realize you're Revan and that you're the last however many weeks or months of your life have been a lie, and you discover who you are. And then there's epiphany. Others may see the hero more clearly too. Others may see in their changed behavior signs that they've been reborn. So now that Karth in particular has found out that you're Revan, and the rest of your companions figure out you're Revan, they have different reactions to finding that out. Some of them are very standoffish, and others are accepting, and some of them you have to have conversations with them to sort of find out where they stand and persuade them. That was just a fascinating aspect of the gameplay for me.
I would think as well that if you are playing as a dark side character, learning the truth that you are in fact the Dark Lord of the Sith, if you are trying to be a dark side character, that would be a reward as well.
That brings us to the end of a very lengthy Act 2.
And now we're into Act 3 of the game, the first segment of which is the road back, where the hero is pursued by vengeful forces disturbed when they slaughtered the Sith Academy.
Mm-hmm.
When you leave your last planet, star map intact, heading to the Star Forge, which you have learned is a giant factory that pumps out spaceships, and that is the source of Darth Malak's invincible and seemingly unending armada.
Yeah.
You are attacked by Sith fighters. After defeating that initial assault, you make your way to the Star Forge, which is in orbit over an unknown planet. There is a disruptor field that causes your ship to suffer a catastrophic failure and crash land on this planet, which looks very much like a resort place.
Yeah, it's like a beachy.
Whew! Talk about your rough landings, Karth. What's the matter? You're flying like you've been on an all-night Teresian ale drinking binge.
That disruptor field fried our stabilizers. We're lucky we made it down in one piece. But if I can't find the salvage to make repairs, I won't even be able to get the Ebon Hawk airborne again.
On this planet, you then discover that there is an ancient temple, within which is the key to shutting down this planet's disruptor field, but the Sith are already there, and they're already in control of the temple. And again, there is an oppressed race of natives there that you have to either work with or slaughter and gain entry to the temple, fight your way to the top, only to discover Bastila there in her Dark Jedi outfit. She has been turned to the dark side and is now Darth Malak's new apprentice.
I have sworn allegiance to Lord Malak and the Sith. I am no longer a pawn of the Jedi Council. The Jedi Council has brainwashed you like all the others, like they once did with me.
Oh man, I kind of thought it might happen, but I was so disappointed because I really came to love Bastila. And when she changes to the dark side, and you can tell she's really changed to the dark side too, because she puts on this really dark eyeliner, and it's just clear that only a dark Jedi would put on, like smoky eye. She goes straight for smoky eye. Oh, another twist, another great twist in a video game.
Yeah, this game received a lot of accolades for its writing.
Rightfully so.
And then you are forced to fight Bastila. At least I was, because I was a light side character. I don't know if you are dark side and you say, well, join me, let's go take out Darth Malak, and I'm Revan, so I'll be the Dark Lord of the Sith again, and you can be my apprentice. I don't know if that's how a dark side story goes. As a light side player, I had to fight her. You don't kill her though; she escapes. You kind of stand there while she runs away and jumps into her ship and flies away.
In my video game inexperience, I never knew that there were fights where halfway through the fight there's a cutscene and you don't have to finish the fight. And my first experience with this was playing Jedi Fallen Order, and I had to battle the Ninth Sister. And it's this terrifying battle where you're totally outmatched, and then something happens in the middle and there's a cutscene. So I was like, oh my God. So when you face Malak and there's a cutscene, I was like, oh, thank God. And then again with Bastila, like, oh, what a relief.
Yeah, it's interesting, these story moments that happen in the middle of what would normally just be video game fight.
Yeah.
You were a pathetic fool, Revan. Together we could have defeated Malak and ruled over an empire. But now, I will be at Lord Malak's side instead. You will be crushed with the Republic and all the fools who bow down to the Jedi Council. No one can stand against the power of the Starforge and the Sith fleet.
And so the conclusion of the segment is Bastila escaping, you turning off the disruptor field, which allows you to escape the planet with the Ebon Hawk and make your way to the Starforge, which is the scene of...
That takes us to Resurrection, where the hero faces death one more time in an ordeal, battle, or showdown. This time the danger is on the broadest scale of the entire story. Every Star Wars story ends with blowing up something big. And so the Resurrection here is the battle on the Starforge. Revan and company join the Republic's assault on the Starforge, at least again, light side perspective. But Bastila has turned to the dark side, and her battle meditation is helping the Sith hold the Republic forces at bay. So somebody has to get inside the Starforge and stop her. So the Ebon Hawk crew lead a strike team of Jedi who land on the Starforge to be met with a horde of dark Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the good Jedi stay to defend the docking bay for a later escape, while Revan and companions head into the Forge to find Bastila. Now, I thought this was going to be having to get through a lot of security doors, a la the Death Star rescue of Princess Leia. Right. So I brought Juhani as a Jedi and T3M4, thinking I'd have to do a lot of computer stuff, but boy, was I wrong. However, I had not used a droid in battle except HK-47, and I discovered very rapidly that you can put some awesome attachments on a droid, like you mentioned, a flamethrower, and this carbonite projector that could freeze even the most formidable Dark Jedi foes. He's a rad little fighter. On the way deeper into the Forge to find Bastila, our hero and companions are assaulted by wave after wave of Sith soldiers, apprentices, and Dark Jedi. As you make your way through this really spectacular environment that looks kind of like a Death Star inside, but it's a big, dark, scary fortress, and it's just really cool. You're fighting on bridges and in huge hallways, and finally, you get to Bastila, who incapacitates your allies, and you must engage her in yet another lightsaber duel. I won the lightsaber battle, but in the conversation that ends the conflict, when Bastila has been defeated, I tried to persuade her to come to the light side, but I couldn't, and she forced me to kill her.
Oh.
I had no choice. But you had a different experience, didn't you?
Yeah, I was somehow able to... And I don't know if it was because my persuade skill was so high or what happened, but I was able to sway Bastila back to the light side of the Force, and she agreed to switch her battle meditation targets and now assisted the Republic rather than hindering them, while the player character continues on to battle Darth Malak.
But you had an unexpected romance element that popped up here too, right?
I sure did. Yeah, the dialogue option that popped up that ultimately resulted in Bastila coming back to the good side was her asking,
I must ask you something. Will there be a place for me in your future? Do you love me?
Which was completely out of nowhere, I felt. Because there wasn't really... I know that there were dialogue options throughout where you could kind of flirt with Bastila, but aside from the first one that I chose on Dantooine, just to see what would happen.
Yeah.
And she shuts you down right away. You're talking about, your shared visions or something, and one of the dialogue option, I think maybe something like, well, we could share more than that or something like that. And she shuts you down immediately. So I didn't choose those options going forward. And so I selected the, I guess, option, and just to see. And she was like, "Oh, I love you too. I'll switch back to the good side. That you've shown me that love is greater than power. What I don't remember what it all says, but it felt out of left field."
Yeah, but Dan, I've known you since junior high, and totally not knowing that a girl was crushing on you is on brand.
Wow.
Also, isn't Jedi aren't allowed to have romantic attachments, so that's just the beginning of something even worse, really.
Well, and I think that's actually part of why she shuts you down too. She says, "We're Jedi. We're not supposed to have attachments, and we can't allow personal feelings to get in the way and things like that." So I don't know. It was just a weird out of nowhere moment.
Well, however your relationship with Bastila concludes, now Revan goes deeper into the Starforge to face down his old apprentice, Darth Malak. And you get this crazy droid puzzle fight thing that you have to complete. And then finally, you have this final lightsaber duel with Malak.
You made a mistake coming here, Revan. The Starforge fuels my command of the dark side. You are no match for me here, and this time you will not escape.
You defeat Malak. The battle for the Starforge is complete. You get off the Starforge just in time as it explodes in a fiery ball. And the Republic has won the day.
You made it. We couldn't let you start the victory party without us, Admiral.
I'm sending an honor guard to escort you in. You'll be getting a hero's welcome when we all get home.
And that brings us to the final segment of the hero's journey, the freedom to live or return with the elixir. The hero, having won some precious treasure or reward, now returns to the ordinary world to share the spoils of battle. Now, you and I both saw the light side victory cutscene where the player is awarded the Cross of Glory, the Republic's highest honor, and you are told that from Coruscant to the farthest reaches of the Outer Rims, you will be known as the saviors of the Republic. Then Not Yoda addresses the crew.
We Jedi now have another tale to weave into the grand history of our eternal order. The redemption of Revan, the prodigal knight.
This time the Wookiee did get a medal, though. They did not leave the Wookiee out. Man, they
sure did.
Made up for that mistake.
Apparently, if you are a dark side player, you reclaim the mantle of Dark Lord of the Sith with the Republic on the run, and Bastila is your new apprentice. I was very curious to see what that looked like, so I did go to YouTube and watch the end cutscene from the dark side perspective to see what happens.
Wow, Dan. What an epic bonus episode. 40 hours of content distilled down to insert how long this podcast was.
I think that is a testament to the writing of the game, that they put these moments into the game that you could pick out as hard and fast hero's journey segment pins.
Yeah, it's a great, satisfying overall arc. You get to have agency in deciding where it goes, and of course, it has a great Star Wars ending.
Yeah, and it's inclusive. You could be, you're not Luke Skywalker character. You could be male. You could be female. There's a whole different kind of character skins you can be. So you're all human. You don't get to be one of the other alien races, but you can be a variety of different ethnicities, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a few different choices you can make there, so you can be what you want. So again, thanks to Cassie and Brian at the Old Republic podcast for inviting us on their show to discuss this, and then kind of inspiring us to put out a little bonus episode of our own for folks.
And check them out on your podcast app. It's the Old Republic podcast. And hey, listeners, if you want more bonus episodes, more bonus content, head over to patreon.com/Heroes Journey Podcast and see if one of our tiers of patronage appeals to you. You got bonus audio content like trivia tidbits from the episode. So if you're inspired to become a patron, check us out at patreon.com/Heroes Journey Podcast.
And a big heap of gratitude to all patrons who make the show possible, including our demigod patrons, John Peterson Jr., Scott Sanford, Ricky Garvin, Jeff Scott, Joseph Wilbur, Michelle Calderon, Ami Garvin, Salathiel Jones, Jasmine and Pete Hudson, Mike and Susie Zarzana, and Randy Sparks.
Special thanks to our friends Taylor Jordan for composing our theme music, and thank you to Jason Dorff for our episode artwork. Links to their portfolios can be found on the About page at heroesjourneypodcast.com. The trademark Heroes Journey is used under license from the Joseph Campbell Foundation. Visit www.jcf.org to learn about how the foundation promotes and celebrates the work of Joseph Campbell.
Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic was developed by BioWare and published by Lucasfilm.
Thanks again for listening. Until next time.
Journey on.
Commentary. It is not possible to destroy the Master. It is suggested you run while my blasters warm up, meatbags.